we are on the same page about what balancing means. I'm not a balancing kind of guy in a non-competitive environment. Throw balance out the window. It's non-competitive. I mean, there are individuals who... There are quite a bit of group that would say it is a competitive environment, and that's fair. I will not tell them that it isn't. I'm saying that I don't find it as a competitive environment. If you truly want a competitive environment, go out and get a job. That sounds a little cold, but it really is true. Like, if you really like competitive environments, there's no place like life itself. If you are telling me that it's fun in a competitive environment, like you're only motivated because it's competitive, that's a really weird way of reducing yourself to one factor. But I mean, I'll respect that. So if you ever say you're only motivated because it has to be competitive, my first thought is go and help someone. Because that's what I did this weekend. It was amazing. It was really exhausting, but I already had all the positive energy that I can give, so I wasn't even exhausted at the end of this. Actually, I was kind of hoping to go on for like another 2 days. I had enough energy for another 2 days, but that's not being respectful to all the people who are exhausted. So pretty much everyone around me was pretty exhausted by the end of like 3.5 to 4 days. So and it takes a whole team to keep those things going. So it would be selfish for me to think that, yeah, let's go for another 2 days. Let's make a convention event that lasts 6 days in a row. It's like, oh no, but people have to work. They have to take care of their families and stuff. So, but in my selfish thing, I had plenty of energy to give. But just because I have energy, I can't make the wheels turn on my own. It was great. It's wonderful. It has ups and downs, but it's part of the experience. Like, what I mean by ups and downs is I had some required more energy than others. Some things require more energy. There was obviously drama and conflicts of interest for others, but we did it. Another great year. Another record shattered, apparently. I can't wait till the official numbers come out. But yes. I don't say it directly because it's actually quite insensitive to be pragmatic about being trying to be realistic, like having a pragmatic response. It's not the kosher thing to do. But in my own time, the thought is that there are rarely, when someone says that things have to be challenging for them to be satisfying, rarely is that enough to describe anything. It's a very reductive way of looking at yourself. And I think you should treat, in my opinion, one should treat themselves with more attention than that. You go around telling yourself that it has to be challenging to be enjoying and motivating. I like to really believe you that you're emotionally resonating with that, but generally speaking, it's a net negative thing. It requires a heavy investment. So without a doubt, that is not true for like 95% of people who says that. So not the people who don't say that, but for 95, I would say at least 95% of people who think that challenge is a necessity to motivate oneself. That is nowhere near the emotional intelligence. You're not at the emotional intelligence level necessary to have a sustainable life with that type of perspective, in my opinion, realistically. You want things to be emotionally interesting enough that the challenge is low, not difficult enough, but you can still perceive that it is challenging. So it's a big conditional where you're saying it's challenging enough in which you have enough energy, emotional, intelligent wise, and intellectually enough to take up the challenge. The paradox in that is the greatest challenge are the challenges you fail at, not the ones that you arbitrarily choose because you can succeed. So in a video game, you aren't ever in a challenging position. Like, no, you aren't. Like, okay, you can argue, well, in battle royales and in PvP, you can lose. It's like you're still choosing to play knowing you can lose. Passive challenges are the true challenges. Finding food, earning money, raising a family, overcoming tragedy, getting fit. Those are passive challenges. Do you like those? Probably don't. And if you're truly a goat and believe that that's true, then I would love to meet you, shake your hand, and tell me your secret. Because I also want to be a marathon runner, top tennis player, be really tall, somehow always stay thin if I just eat ice cream all day. Tell me your secret. It's not true. I love to meet the person with the most compelling evidence-based story to prove to me that you like challenging things as a way to like, challenge is all that matters for you to be motivated. It's too reductive. But it's my open plea to share to share more details about your story, because I want to know what that mean. Like, I want to know more about you. It's great when you hear all what makes that statement unique in the long run is how that person begins to elaborate. Like, okay, in what sense challenging? Like, are we talking about, do there need to be good sportsmanly conduct? No one's getting hurt in the challenge? Because, like, I can tell you, another challenging thing is doing something that will hurt someone inadvertently. What's a great example of that? Well, jobs suck a lot of times because even when you're winning, you could be losing. For example, you met a great coworker. He's a great friend, or she's a great friend, or they are a great friend. And you're up for promotion. When you get promoted, you will know that because you got promoted, your friend did not get promoted. And that's a challenge. What do you choose? Some people, like me, often avoid those situations. So instead, I want to know that I could somehow either both of us win or I lose with them. Other people say, sorry man, you need to go onto the bus now because I'm driving this bus. Those are great challenges. Challenges that are unavoidable. Conflict of interest is a great challenge. Video games are great because they are not challenging. There are great ways to explore what you can do as a person. Explore things that you haven't considered doing with minimal consequences, minimal challenges. And that's what makes it fantastic. That's my personally, that's my framework of how to describe what makes video games so wonderful in life and why is it so trendy. When life throws a humongous obstacle in your face, video games can offer a stimulation that isn't challenging enough to break you. And you get to choose. So, imagine if you don't get to choose what kind of video games you play. Immediately it becomes more challenging. But those people who say they like challenges, they choose their challenges. So generally speaking, they don't even choose challenging games to play. They choose games that they emotionally resonate with. They rely on their intuitive nature to choose something that is advantageous to them. That's most people. Otherwise, you're gonna have a really bad time emotionally. Like, it's not sustainable to constantly put yourself in a negative environment. For example, always playing the games you hate. That's rarely ever sustainable for the majority population. Right, I need to collect engine parts, but I do need to turn in 2 of these. And then we need to complete those. And we still need to complete the abyssal tears. Going up? Yeah. Yeah, so a slight perspective shift. Video games are great because you get to choose the challenges you know you have a chance of succeeding. Maybe that is the definition we should go by. Like, how would you, one of the defaults, right? One of the defaults of defining what a challenge is that you have to have a route for success. And that's fair. It would qualify all the challenges that people pick. When people describe to me their challenges, my first thought in terms of challenge, I think of it's number one to me. And I would ask them, are you happy? Because if you think that you need a challenging motivation to want to play a video game, right? And you have to like a video game to find motivation to challenge yourself in that video game. There is quite a low chance, or depending on how you view it, there's a low chance that your happiness is no more than a 5 out of 10. The reason I can kind of say that is video games is a form of coping mechanism. It's a form of escapism. So it's not like I'm taking a guess or anything. You're playing video games, you're picking specific experiences because you're not running on net positive energy. You're running on net negative energy, and you're trying to gain more energy by doing something and killing 2 birds with 1 stone. You're trying to acquire and develop skills that may or may not translate to things, depending on how passively you interact. But at the flip side, you're also gaining more than inputting. So the likelihood of someone who's already in this discussion is that they are not up to challenge of making themselves happy. Like what it takes to like really truly be happy without the accessibility of video games. I would say this percentage above 5, like someone who's happy above 5, dramatically increases, which goes with all the statistics and evidence and anecdotal testimonies, is when someone says that they like a challenge because they feel like death working out. It immediately goes to a 6 or a 7, and I would believe them. Because the physical, that type of thing is a next level challenge. So if they have enough time and emotional constitution to find that type of challenge, right, that level of challenge approachable, then they are overall happier because they're able to tackle more challenging things. And then you have like some serious goat-worthy things. People that say, I love going to work. I like spending negative energy helping people. I love volunteering. That's when you have like super negative investment. Like you get foreseeably nothing back. Like the lowest it gets is you get nothing back. And you have enough energy to say you're happy to do that. Then you're like goating life. Video games, I would say 5 and below. Your happiness level is at a 5 or below when you're doing that. If you're not suggesting anything else. So for example, if someone is physically active, also playing video games, the bottom line is still the most challenging thing you tackle. So I use this a lot to try to get an initial impression of someone, because I like to know if they're happy or not. That's the main way to really warm up to someone, or show someone, offer someone a sense of vulnerability or empathy, so that it doesn't seem very cold or icy. And that's what I did this past weekend. Tried my best at practicing that. Because it works at conventions too. A lot of times, conventions, people volunteer for distinct categorical reasons. And the categorical reasons are tied to their overall happiness at the time. Are you volunteering at a convention because you want to give, because you're really not stressed out? Or are you volunteering because you're stressed out and you want to have stress relief because it's a fun thing to do? Well, here's a paradox. If you're already stressed out and you're volunteering in a position that is incredibly net negative, what is the most likely occurrence? You get more exhausted. You are more likely to project your stress onto another person and inherently become less productive as a volunteer than if you were to just enjoy the convention without volunteering. So yeah, biggest challenge, volunteer to help someone without ever getting a return. It literally means you have to give. The biggest challenge is inputting everything as much as you can with no guarantee of reward. Video games always have a reward. It immediately becomes less challenging than anything that doesn't give a reward or guarantees a reward. I've been working on a little thing, but I'll probably save it for another one. It's a digression thing, but I'll save it for another time. It'll be a little bit fleshed out, but the punchline in like probably gonna be like 4 or 5 hours long, but the punchline is I really naively believe that most people are kind when they have kind thoughts. But to put kindness into action requires someone to already be happy and be able to give a resource that they're not looking for. So if you're not happy, if you're not overall happy already, and you're looking for wins, being a kind person is not enough to project kindness. And oftentimes, when you are already stressed out and you're thinking helping other people is like the goat in giving you better feelings, usually you end up with a kind heart hurting more people than helping. And it can be as innocent as, oh yeah, you know, if I volunteer here, I get free perks. It's like, but what do those perks cost? It's like, well, they're free, so they make me feel better. It's like, no, it isn't free. You volunteered in a stressed position. You got those free perks by making other people's experiences worse than they could be. Like, that free ticket, those free perks are the cost of someone else's experience at the place. That's where it comes from. That's what it's being paid for. Other people's feelings and experience is the cost of your free ticket. So there really isn't any free thing if you have enough framework and perspective. But it's still admirable that overall, you're a kind person. You know, people are kind. They're trying to volunteer even when they may not be so certain that they are. So when people have dissonance in their emotional state and their intellectual state, when they're just distant, like, yeah, I'll be fine. It's gonna be exhausting and stressful and stuff, but people will have fun time and I'm helping, you know, it's volunteer work. Like, nah, most of the time you're doing harm to yourself and the people around you. It's just as likely. So being kind doesn't circumvent what the reality happens. So when you start looking at departments and stuff like management and human resources, like, man, I don't understand. Why is this company filled with so much negativity and like everything seems to be just lots of drama? It's like, well, how happy are your work staff? And what is your requirement to maintain like the positive environment? So like, for example, let's say 51%. Just arbitrarily, we try to quantify above majority is a positive environment, right? Your bottom line is 51% approval rating. Well, are all your workers quantitatively together 51% approved? Like, are there 51% happiness overall? When it comes to volunteer work, especially in incentivized volunteer work, it's not. It's usually, well, a lot of times it's not. And those that are, they shine so much. And I'm so happy, and even through like the roller coasters of this previous weekend that I witnessed on and off, which I'll probably talk about at length in another time. Overall, it was positive. So Otakon, like the place continues to be thriving. It continues to be a net positive thing. But in all of that, it's an averaging effect. What is lost in that average is that there are really heavy drama for those who overestimate how well they are feeling right now. And they have different priorities. So this is only coming from one perspective, like the pragmatism of volunteering, of giving someone. But if you're viewing it as a, an opportunity to look for inspiration and stuff, that's a net negative for volunteering, but that's a net positive for self. So often the perspective is not in line with the emotional state. So when someone says like, I volunteer because I want to make other people feel good. And you ask them like, so how do you do that? It's like, well, you know, I get to do this, I get to do this, and I basically do it for free. And then the moment's like, what does it being free have anything to do with the prospect of giving service at a zero cost? Because it will cost you. So if you're still focusing on perks, like it doesn't cost you anything, then you're actually looking to mitigate your cost. So you're not in a net positive situation where you're able to offer unconditionally your mind, body, and soul. Your soul is saying, no, I can't give much more. I'm exhausted. I'm stressed. Your mind is saying, it's good to help people. It'll make me feel better. And then what you have in the end is pent up, unsolicited projection of your dissatisfaction. So then what happens tends to be your work suffers, your volunteer obligations get thrown by the wayside, your quality of help can be more deleterious than it is beneficial to both you and people. So unnecessary drama ensues. You return to your hotel room and you're like, oh man, I'm so exhausted, man. I wish I had shorter hours. It's like, oh man, this sucks. Like, I wish people would stop complaining. It's like, you're not ready for volunteering. Your mind says you're kind enough, and I believe you. Like, I absolutely believe you. You're a very kind person, but your emotions are not. Your body and your emotions are saying no. Your mind says, I'll get more out of it. And at the end of the day, you come out even more exhausted than you went in. So you basically volunteer hoping to get a reinvigoration of life, expecting that helping other people will give you more energy. Instead, it figuratively and literally did the opposite. And you harmed and burned bridges at the same time. And you probably just, since you're offering a service, pulled many other people down. So the cost to keep yourself remotely happy and survive was at the expense of everyone you encountered. That's an outlook. That's framing the cost of your things. Obviously, ideally, there are trade-offs, and there are things you give and things you can't give. But pragmatically speaking, when you volunteer outwardly, like you're thinking of volunteering outwardly, like it's an opportunity to help people, you have to understand that you gain zero. You are not only going to gain zero, you are going to lose. Like if you're thinking inwardly as a volunteering experience, you are losing something. And what you gain is you see the transfer of your value to something else. So at the expense of your exhaustion, at the expense of your happiness, like you become less happy, you see someone else become happier. So if I can sacrifice me feeling like a 10 to a 9 to save someone from being a 4 and getting to a 5, that's worth it. So if I end up being less happy because I choose to volunteer, as in I get exhausted, and so if I can bring someone up from the brink of being sad to a contentment, that is far more significant than me having more happiness. That is the essence of volunteer work. And that's why I volunteer every year. There's a more cogent way of saying that, but I have so many thoughts. And then it's a mixed bag in between, you know, like there are things that work, not work, and I've got a little taste of some of that every time. But that's kind of the idea. If you're going for different types of opportunities, then emotionally you might be in line. So like a good alternative example is I like to volunteer because there's an opportunity to network. So that's no longer about, that's if someone goes about doing that instead of misattributing to wanting to help people, then you won't necessarily have the same outcome. Your expectations are different. Your framework is different. So you can come out a win. Like if your opportunity is to network, then you can network offsetting any expenses. So you'll get a return. So it won't feel as like a net negative experience because you're expecting to gain back. But truly, you gotta make sure that your emotional state is with your mental state. Because man, people do be betraying themselves a lot. On the one hand, they say they love volunteering and helping people. On the other hand, they're complaining about helping people. And I don't mean literally, but sometimes literally they complain about it. But all the indicators show that they're not here to help people. They're here to get a mix. They're here to feel better, get some stress relief. And that's the thing they're doing, is not providing that. So inadvertently, you're probably worse off than you went. It's another slight digression would be vacations. Like there are vacations that are designed with the intent of relaxing and getting some R&R, and then there are people who plan a vacation like they're not looking for rest, and then expecting like they become rested. That's when you have some emotional trauma, like emotional dissonance. You come back with the education, it's like, man, why am I more exhausted than when I left? Well, what did you think would happen when you plan a vacation filled with events instead of resting? That's kind of the volunteer work issue a lot of times. And I ask this question quite a bit too. It's the same way I approach video games. Like my biggest concern is seeing that the person's quality of life and emotional state is aligned with their intellectual state. I think this is why I play video games too. I want to find how people express and use video games as an outlet. Why is that mage not interactable? That's weird. So yeah, kind of goes back to challenging positions, but this is video games are rarely ever a competitive process, and I know I'm pulling a bigger perspective pop-out answer. It is competitive if you look at it from the micro standpoint. Absolutely. It should, for me, it's not my type priority. Like, I like to see people happy. And one way to be happy about competitive games is to have a bigger perspective. In my opinion, it a lot of times it offsets, like, the negativity of losing, the negativity of feeling like, I don't know, you're not performing well, and always constantly having that emotion of a steady improvement. That requires a framework bigger than the game itself, the macro perspective. I like, sounds very, very cliche, but also hard to find. I like to meet happy gamers. And I don't think this community specifically as well, or a lot of live service communities, have gamers that have their emotional and intellectual state resonating with each other. Their expectations are incredibly misaligned with interpreting what works for them and what doesn't. Because it's really challenging. Like, what is a live service game if not a lifestyle? What's the most challenging thing that you have to take care of in your life? Developing a lifestyle. So it hurts the most. It's constantly close and familiar, yet it's taking the form of a coping mechanism. So losing that classical coping mechanism. Why can't I find what's going on here? Why am is someone taking all the injured mages from me? Like, what the heck's going on here? Yeah, one of the comments, for example, I want things fast and here's a good one. I want things fast and right away. Why do I have to wait on things in a live service game? All right, so there's plenty of developer games in existence that say like, yeah, you're right. This is a game. We're gonna give you everything right away. The next comment is like, man, guys, this game's dead. It never got new content. Like, it doesn't get new content all the time. It's like, well, yeah, it's a live service game. Like, can you think of aspects of your life that forms a habit that you get right away and then you decide not to form an attachment to it through persistent work? The answer is likely no. Because if it came easy, you probably still feel the same way. Like the people who complain about like getting things really fast because you use video games as a way to not be reminded of real life. So I shouldn't have to wait on things in a video game because a video game is not like real life. Like, that's fair. A live service game, unfortunately, has the connotation of being a game. So if you choose to normalize that to a video game, then yeah, you're going to be out for disappointment. And it's always in conflict, right? I want a lot of content all at once, but then you unrealistically want the content completed all at once. Try to do that yourself. Try to offer that to someone. Hey, I'll provide you everything you want on command and continuously supply you with new things. Just sit down and ask yourself if that's reasonable or if that's achievable. Oh, I'm not sure if I was supposed to turn that in. I think so. Because we're gonna bank the heroic encounter, right? Pretty sure we're just gonna bank the heroic encounter. Oh. Yes. It's story time because we're bootstrapping through these. Takes a little bit. I could be a little bit more efficient on my routes. Could be a little bit more efficient. Boy, do I got some stories though. I'll try to write them up and be a little bit more coherent. We'll do like a proper digression in maybe a little bit down the line. Got like diagrams in my head spinning around. You can one can gather so much things to share about in 3 days, just being out, 3 or 4 days being out in the wild, interacting with different people. Lots of sources of inspiration. Unfortunately, it's something video games can't offer, because you're voluntarily choosing what you want to learn and what you want to see. It's super exhausting though, don't get me wrong. I think I went out with like a lifestyle that had like a plus, I'm gonna say I'm like plus 30. Maybe after a nap is like plus, like if I was completely exhausted, I get like plus 10 from a nap. And it's like plus 30 from a hard reset, like a good REM sleep. Plus 30 kind of thing. And each day I was like hovering around a 5 maybe at the end of the day. So I get like, I was at like, near the end, I was getting close to a negative. So I had like another day or two of fuel in me. But if I went another day or two, I would wholeheartedly say I was strained and start progressively becoming more and more exhausted. But yeah, I could definitely have stories of both people who are incredibly on the positive end, and then people who are incredibly on the not ready end. And mixed obligations. Lots of mixed obligations. But provides so many variety of inspiration, because you're challenged to process all of it, and that was the challenge that I look forward to. There was so many things I wasn't expecting, I couldn't possibly have expected. Oh, interesting. Why did this character get 2? Wait, why did the paladin, why did the Justicar get 2 dailies from this guy? What the heck? Oh, I might have missed. Oh no, wait. Maybe I did complete them. What? Okay, let's just do this first. So let's collect the realm engine parts. But yeah, the other guy also has the same has a pool of 2 that doesn't come back right away. Like 2 repeatables. Yeah, I did the tears. Constantly refining, right? Like this whole MMORPG thing, right? It's the biggest skill, I'm gonna say the biggest skill gap is the thing it's the skill that most people avoid developing. And it's easily my most top bias skill, like the value skill that I come to love about non-competitive PvE games. I mean, yes, they used to try to balance like adding a little PvP component to it that would complement it, but ultimately in both the PvP and PvE environment of an MMO, there's one skill that these games offer that produces the biggest skill gap to date. And since that skill becomes so underdeveloped, most games have largely alleviated and replaced the need to refine that skill. And that's communication. And communication isn't just about how you talk. It's also about how you interpret people and willing to take up the challenge of feeling uncomfortable, not being ready for the obstacles that present you, tolerance. It's multifaceted. It's one of the highest skill gap skills. That's unique to non-competitive MMORPGs. And an evolution of the non-competitive MMORPG is the new structure of live service games. Your legacy is that skill. If you're not developing that skill, then your reward can offer you in any other form other than a living like live service game. Like it's very sustainable to not play a live service game if you're looking for something else that isn't communication skills or understanding how to legacy build, remain self-motivated, creating habits. Live service games are indeed that. You must cultivate life skills. So how good are your habit formations? How good is compulsory, motivated repetition? That stuff, if you ask yourself that, that will tell you, in my opinion, if a live service game is appropriate and sustainable for you as a source of, I don't know, reward or interaction, right? So if it's not, like, say, oh, I just play games for learning a new technique or something, it's not a live service game you're looking for. To me, that's a cognitive dissonance. You will be emotionally dissonant all the time when you play a live service game if you're not looking and expecting to develop life skills in it. So what does that mean? Upkeeping with the same people that play the game. That sounds a lot like a lifestyle skill. Being regular. Log in daily for a specific amount of time. Not playing too long. Exercising discipline. Patience for ongoing updates. Extended repetition of refinement and iteration. There's all the like it's largely all the skills you're running away, like you typically avoid when you're playing a video game for most people who dislike live service games. So live service games aren't for you. I think it's great if I don't think it's bad or good that you can admit or understand that they won't fulfill your needs, and that's a clarity and understanding of self. So when someone comes here and say like, man, why do people play these games? It's not even challenging. Like, well, what do you classify as a challenge? You hate this game, so it's already challenging intellectually. But let's just entertain for a moment. Like, how do you classify a challenge? A lot of times it's going to say, well, you can't fail in this game. It's like, what do you mean by failing? It's like, well, you know, you finished a dungeon. The dungeon is a pushover. It's easy. And so it's like, you mean it's easy to complete, right? Like, oh, okay. So you're talking about, you think the dungeon ends when you complete the dungeon. That's not the building blocks of a live service game. It's how many times you've beaten the dungeon, how regularly you do the dungeon, how many people you played through the dungeon with you. If you beat the dungeon 3,000 times, then I'm gonna Well, I'm gonna say, yeah, you have the mentality of live service guy. What does that sound like? Well, it certainly sounds like eating, doesn't it? It also sounds like daily coping. It also sounds like a habit. You don't like habits? If you have poor habits and you only think habits as a negative thing, eesh. Yeah, you're not prepped for a live service game. Go somewhere else, pick a game that you can complete, has a beginning and an end, and to me, you are more than likely to be much happier. And that's perspective. And I wish that clarity onto most people about what their wants and desires are. And ironically, I guess, one of the best ways to tackle that is to participate in a task that deals with communication. So yeah, forced communication, if you're constantly forced into a situation in which your success or your perception of success is predicated on your ability to communicate with someone, it will enable you to express that actively. And with the active expression of that, you begin to intuit what you really desire or what is necessary to reach your desires. You're playing a video game to escape from life. Stop playing live service games. The live service games reinforce so many things about real like life skills, lifestyle skills. They're persistent, they're constant, daily, requires discipline. They're like your favorite cake. If you eat too much of it, which most completionists would eat too much of it all at once, you're gonna get sick of it. What happens in a live service game? You're sick of it. No discipline, because games to you does not require life skills. Hey, Worm. You can be happy without playing a live service game. You can also be happy without hating a live service game or hating to like a live service game as well. Gaining perspective on what you love and want and how to get that is such an incredible life skill. And the world would be so wonderful if that just is intuitive for everyone. But it really isn't, because environments, conditioning, resources, psychological gaslighting, toxic opportunism, they warp people's perspective, right? It clouds their judgments, and also youth and inexperience. All that stuff creates a perspective where someone would come into a live service game and say, wait, I have to do this every single day for like 30 minutes? Well, you know, if I have to play 30 minutes for 30 days every day, why can't I just play 900 minutes in one day and get it over with? It's like, well, don't play a live service game. You're looking for a completionist game. A game that has a beginning or an end, and it has no commitments. It also screams to me that you don't understand what commitment is, and you have poor habit or untrained habit of forming healthy habits, and your expectations are not meeting your emotional demands. And I see a person that might be unknowingly making themselves feel worse, and that sucks. And I've seen quite a bit of that this weekend, and it really hurts. My heart literally just cries a lot for, like, feels really bad for someone who says one thing and they're just constantly getting hurt because the thing they're doing is creating the situation. And the best thing you can offer is to maybe point them in a direction that helps them gain some clarity. The last thing you want to see, in my opinion, it just often doesn't, even to your worst enemies, like say you just really dislike someone, but a person who's like, you don't have to do anything, they're legitimately hurting themselves every single time. That's worse than living hell. Like, I mean, that might quite literally be one for them. So it really hurts when you see someone who actively don't even know they're self-sabotaging themselves. And in a more lighthearted way, video games can be just as dangerous at making someone feel worse and worse, like progressively worse and worse, because it doesn't always, it can't consistently sustainably put out. It's unrealistic for a human being to solely rely on a really closed off impression. So when I think about these games, like when I play Neverwinter, I see that in a lot of the people who have a different attachment to live service games. And to me, this is a part of gaming future, but the psychology in the matter is very constantly geared towards the predatorial effect. Like, it's benefiting one group, but it's disproportionately at the expense of another group. And it's so mirroring real life. But I think live service games can transcend that. They can transcend and meet a compromise that isn't so close to life skills. Like right now, what I'm stating is probably a little bit obvious to those who are obvious, but I don't think it has to be that way. I don't think live service games have to emphasize all the things that make older video games, like the standalone video games and like other games that are not live service, so antagonistic to live service games. Like, live service game can be a fidget spinner for all that matters. It can serve the exact purpose of a fidget spinner. Here's a great example, and I witnessed this so much in like a convention setting. People who play mobile games while having conversations and doing tasks. Those mobile games are live service games. You might call them gacha games, or you might call them like microtransaction games, but they're live service games. And when I see a person that's hurting, the first thing they say is, I ask you, like, why are you so passionate about this? You seem, you have a spark of life when you talk to me about your mobile game. What happened to that person when you're talking about everything else, like your life and all that stuff? Like, why isn't that coming out, right? And the idea is like, it's just, this is very comfortable. It's like, well, you learned a life skill, and I want to give you a little perspective. The way you approach that live service game, that mobile game, how that, the aspects that attracted you to that, you can use that. It's translatable to developing healthy habits in life. So right now, the state of live service is kind of preying on the transitioning period of people understanding the bigger perspective. And so it's a little bit predatorial. I absolutely agree. I concede for that. At the same time, with perspective, people can take advantage of it, and they can even avoid it entirely. But who's responsible here? And that's kind of the tough question, right? Is the consumer responsible by making the active choice? Or is it the predatory design that's creating a no-choice decision? What does that sound like in real life? A no-choice decision sounds like, for example, poverty, addiction, poor habits, coping. Those are really weak points that you can prey on. And I don't know who's like, I'm not going to place blames. I think it can be a collective. I think both the consumer and the developer can harmoniously find a sustaining compromise that doesn't hurt people and trap people into no choice situations. And you might be thinking, well, the developer doesn't do that. It's like, yeah, actually the developers do. They're people too, right? They're people too. And when they have to make live service updates, it's also part of their livelihoods. So when one fails, the other one fails too. Like, it's a lose-lose situation. When their community is hurting the very people that are developing it, it becomes a no-choice situation, or it feels like a no-choice situation for both parties involved. And then you ultimately get the shutdown of the game, right? The game eventually reach a critical mass. Because life doesn't end in one thing. It slowly dies and drains you. So, yes, on the one hand, it's a developer's job, right? It's their career and whatnot. But on another hand, one can live very harmoniously with, say, if you go to your favorite restaurant, it's their job to make that food, but you can also love the restaurant owner and love to go to the restaurant, and that restaurant owner love to serve you. So that's kind of where I think the live service model is going to go. And I hope to see in the future, because I would love to sink my teeth into like one or two really nice ones. Like right now, Neverwinter and PSO2 are my hold on it. When I want to just do this, try to find some semblance and allegories or analogies to real life, I play Neverwinter and I see if I can like abstract it to real life, because it's not a really far step. I can create a habit forming program on a particular skill in Neverwinter and use that framework to get someone to run each day. Because it requires habit forming to be attracted to a live service game. It's preying on that as well. So you have to be careful of that. Because just like alcohol addiction, people can take advantage of you through addiction too. Also, did something happen to your VOD's last post and it's a week old? Yeah, I was away at a convention. So this slight digression that I'm talking about is because I was away for 4 days at a convention. I volunteer at Otakon. So this week is from the last 4 days I was away volunteering. I have a lot of life stories to talk about. We'll probably talk about some of them when I get a better like more concise perspective. So I'm just rambling a little today. Nothing too well thought out. I was gonna highlight this portion because I'm getting a little bit of teaser here and there. Most of my rants today deal with the convention. I was thinking of like writing a TED Talk like thing or something. It's really big. I haven't been out. Every year I do this. So just to give you a background, this is my 15th year in a row attending and or working at this convention. It's a lifestyle choice across the 15 years. And it's a time where it's especially vivid today, or like this time around, because this year, since the last Otakon, I spent the least amount of time in a IRL environment, in a in the least pre-selected environment. So by what I mean by that is, it was incredible. I have so many stories. I was farming people's stories like it was my job. Like, today's quest, listen to 5 people's stories. Today's quest, analyze and collect data on 10 random strangers or something like that. Like, it was a lot. And there is some pre-selection. Otakon is an anime convention. Well, it's a otaku convention. So there's some pre-selection. So you have some expectations and some limitations. But it's far more than streaming, right? Because streaming is audience-based. They're already pre-selected. A game of choice, what you do every day. So it's not like working out. Working out is self-selected. Like, you don't have to run if you don't choose to run each day. So it was overwhelming. It was lots of fun. I have a lot of things to talk about, but at the same time, it's a lot of ideas to work through. And I'm like teasing a little bit of it, and it's kind of like bleeding over into this. Because there's so much of... you can relate this back to live service so well. Oh, wow. So, So I got more dailies this time for this character, for whatever reason, than my barbarian. But yeah, Worm, oh, and there were just as a disclaimer, right? Like, I don't really go to conventions to partake in the hobby because I'm very familiar with the hobby. The thing I really do there is I volunteer. Like, I really volunteer. Like, I genuinely love what I do each year is the less I do in the year. So for example, I built a lifestyle recently. Like, the last year, I'm at a 30 most of the time. Like, when I wake up, I'm at a 30. It used to be I'm at a 10. So a lot of times when I go to Otakon, I get really exhausted. Like, you know, some days I'm really tired. Some days I'm a little crummy. But overall, I have enough energy to make a positive impact in Otakon and come out with a positive experience. But since this past year, I spent a lot of time improving my lifestyle, trying to practice what I preach, basically trying to see if it actually even works for myself, even knowing. And nowadays, I'm like double that positive energy. And this year, I had so much excess energy to just let go because I didn't do anything remotely related to people. That holy heck, like, I have a gold mine of stories. I have so many stories to share, but it does take time to like organize all those thoughts, and I was sharing some of them. Mainly the first thing was on the idea of volunteering. Right? I volunteer because I know I'm happy, like really happy, as in I think I have a lot to give. And that's why I volunteer. Like, I still volunteer even if I'm down and stuff, but this is the highest I've ever been. So I was all out and about trying to get people as happy as they can, right? And the idea is, if I'm a 30, I want to give up at least 25 of those points to someone else. So it means I have less energy in the end of the day. Like, I'm willing to give that energy, right? But in exchange for maybe like a story or something. But the idea is, what became pretty obvious to me, that was one of the most stuck out points in these situations, is many people go to conventions, even like volunteer and help out at conventions, but they're already at like a 5 or even close to a negative. Like the thing that really stuck out a lot, a significant number of people that make splashes, is that they're already negative 5s. So when you go to volunteer, right? What are you giving? And how could it ever possibly come out that you're less stressed, less worried, and feel better about yourself? So that's kind of the big theme that I'm gonna talk about. And that negativity, like that -4, is still possible. I thought about, I was proposing this to someone who I feel that I had a great accurate thought about. And I was trying to see if his perspective can get him to a positive place when he leaves a convention going in at negative. So the idea is, it's not volunteering to help other people. It's volunteering so you could help yourself. So as long as this individual feels like they were able to get that type of opportunity, they have to understand it's also at the expense of projecting opportunism. So for example, your favorite convention's coming up, right? Oh, dang it. I'm looking for call outs for Proto Engine, but can't get into some of these. They're filling right away. So this person, a lot of people right now, they're going in and they're volunteering because they get perks for volunteering, and then they get to quote unquote enjoy the experience of the convention. Their goal was to relax and let loose and enjoy themselves, but the people that I met on the first day were already stressed out. Their incentive is to let loose so they can let go of stress, right? Let's just use that as the premise, the primer. Well, if you're going in trying to relieve stress in a position that you're offering service, like you've obligated yourself to help someone, to service someone, how can you ever get less stress from that expectation? So I went around to many people, like I would say 30 to 40 people, and I asked them, why do you do this? Like, why are you here? What are your motivations? And a lot of times it's either to get something for themselves, to enjoy themselves, or to relieve stress. All those three things, pragmatically speaking, logically speaking, intellectually speaking, and even emotionally speaking, do not check out with volunteering. Volunteering takes a healthy individual that's happier, so happy, sufficiently happy that they are willing to give up and expend that net positive energy to redistribute it to people who are coming to the place to gain energy. So your purpose, pragmatic purpose, is to redistribute your energy. And then after the event, that is your legacy. That's the payout. The payout is you lose energy to gain a transfer of energy. Your success is measured by how many people you make happy, because you're sacrificing like 5 points of your positive energy, because this person, they need 5 more points. Just give them 5 points and they will go home and they will have a great 4 days of activity. That's what you're doing. That's the mindset. You are already coming in knowing you can handle more stress. You can handle more responsibility. So when you're truly coming here and you're telling me that you want to help people by volunteering, you are coming here expecting to not gain anything. In fact, you are expecting to spend your energy most of the time. But that wasn't the realistic. Obviously, that's idealistic. If that is the case for an entire organization of volunteers, that organization will be so high up. And Otakon, the convention that I went to, it's over 50%. Like, it's growing. So overall, given like people who are more out for themselves, like they don't have as much positive energy, overall it's still growing. So the net thing is there's a net positive, like across everyone, like people who are down on the dumps, people who are not, people who are looking for opportunities for themselves. In the end, another record was shattered. So it means overall we're recruiting enough people to redistribute positive energy as a service. Now, that is an average. So now I collected anecdotal things. People who are on the bottom, people who lack energy, people who are going in for different opportunities. So now if we subside on the volunteering perspective, right? Now we're talking about people who came to network or people who came for stress relief. Well, that can happen too. But are they coming? And if you ask them, are they saying helping people helps them feel better? Because that's usually not how that works. When you help someone, you feel better after the task is done. The act of that task will be exhausting. It will be self-sacrificing. It's afterwards. So if you're already stressed and you think helping people will make you feel less stressed, you don't have any energy to offer in order for that to happen in the first place. It's a transaction. So now you have some people who like, I'm so tired. I feel like I'm always helping people, but they never like give me any respect or never thank me and stuff. It's like, well, yeah, because if you helped them, you probably projected really negative energy in the first place. Like, yeah, you got them to where they are, but you feel entitled for return. It's like, that's not what a volunteer does. A person who's giving takes on all the burdens. They are stepping up to know that this person is coming here to want to have a good time, not because they're not there to make you happy. That's not how that works, in my opinion, like pragmatically speaking. However, if you tell yourself, if you framed it, right? If you framed it and said, you're here to make yourself feel better, how do you do that reasonably here? Well, some people come there, go volunteer to network. So you ask this person, so how do you network? What are you going to do? It's like, well, one thing you can do is you're really stressed, right? Network with people who have a lot of positive energy to give you. So like, if someone wanted to network, I'd be happy to impart positive energy to you because I have spare energy to give you. And ultimately that person would succeed. And then if they have excess energy, they pass it around, right? That's the idea. But there are people who say like they're stressed out, but they're saying they're doing it because it makes them feel good to help people. In the end, when you think you're a kind person, you probably are. I absolutely respect that you have kind thoughts. But the take-home message is that if you have no energy to give, kind thoughts become accidental drama and projection. If you are net negative already, kind thoughts can produce mixed results when you're acting kind. So what happens, what does that illustrate? It creates drama, friction, people lash out at each other unintentionally, people go on power trips, like, so there was all that's still happening at the same time. And with proper perspective, which leads back to like Neverwinter. Sorry for the digression from Neverwinter, but Neverwinter reminds me of this same situation. If your expectations are in line with your emotional expectation, like your intellectual perspective frames properly your emotional expectations, then it becomes a really like positive thing and becomes a net positive experience. And what I witnessed today, after all my like streaming and the stuff, like I pretty much, what I did is I did a social experiment and I was seeing if the things I say really check out. And I got 4 stories that are directly with conversing directly with those people. And they represent 4 of the models that I was talking about. It was fantastic because all of them worked out. And the reason why they worked out is because it was a good affirmation. Like, it worked out because my model of deduction worked out. But they could have not worked out and I could have learned something. So the downside is I didn't learn anything new that I could add, like any core foundation, but I had a lot of new stories that backs up what I was saying, and it's great. Like, one person clearly was net negative, but in a great way of investment that I was able, like for me, I was able to at least by example lift that person, and that's what they came there for anyways. So I offered the thing they were looking for. So I read them properly. It's like, great. I saw one person who was absolutely positive beyond my relief. She worked as a occupational therapist for over 50 years. She worked in occupational therapy more than I have been alive. It was such a humbling experience. And the moment we talked, we literally were doing the same thing. We both sat there and said, we're really happy with our lives. We like seeing people happy. So we're here to look at people, see how they solve problems. What are they looking for? It's research. It helps us learn. She does it professionally. A 75-year-old lady. She was amazing. It was so humbling, but we didn't even have enough time to unpack professionally and intellectually. So I had an example of that where I was the person that's wanting to learn. Like, I want to like extract her experience, but not quite an opportunity there. And she shared me with the same intellectual courtesy. It was brilliant. I was not expecting that experience. And then we had the 2 in the middle where they're balancing. So overall, those people are net positive, but they are stressed out. But they ultimately contribute net positively because they know how to separate and compartmentalize what makes them negative around the Otakon, and then compartmentalize what they have to do at the convention. And in 2 different ways too. One, seek opportunistic things in the convention itself. The other person seek it by detaching it from their baggage outside. Like, they don't bring their baggage in. So it was a great model of all the peeps. And obviously it's great that they're willing to trust me and share some of this, and I like to share some of these examples. But all of them worked out, and it's incredible. Like, I wouldn't have ever guessed that I would get so many useful examples, and they all worked out so well. Anyways, I thought it was a great experience. I was so hyped, like so hyped. I think all I was doing is like, when I finished my like shift, like they would be like 4 or 5 hour shifts, right? I would finish my 4-hour shift. I would go back to the room and I want to like take a nap, because the first thing I thought to myself is, I'm not wasting energy like doing something for myself, because if I rest, I can conserve my energy for more interactions. So I was farming like crazy. I was so into collecting more and more stories, because it was refreshing. And the reason why it's refreshing is because I spent so long well, since the last time, I spent the majority of my time on self-help. So it goes back to the other thing about it. If you have great self-help or have a great healthy lifestyle, social interactions, learning other new things, encountering the unknown becomes trivial because you have so much excess net positive stuff that the worst thing is like my car breaking down, and I don't even think that's gonna sap my energy. Like, there are so many things that could have terribly happened and I would still be like, nah, I got this. And this year is probably the one that I was really up for it. Like, if it went for another 2 days, I wanted to meet another 2 people that I spend like 8 hours trying to help, like in any way possible. Like, I was so, like, genuinely, when you help someone, right? When you help people, you sacrifice your energy, and helping people is incredibly exhausting because to be successful, you have to have enough energy to overcome the obstacle that's required, and it's incredibly taxing. But I had so much energy going into this that I wanted more. Like, I wanted to, I don't know, if I had other resources other than like talking to the person, right? My major resource I have accessible is not money because I don't have money. So the thing I have are my words and my actions in a day. So this person is really tired, they don't want to go to work, or like they're having trouble sleeping. I got you. I'll try to find a way that you can sleep better or something, you know, things like that. Like, things I can do and offer at the expense of my own energy. And I was still going strong. Like, holy heck. I drove back today at 5 a.m. in the morning. Like, I had like 2 hours of sleep. I just got popped right back up at 5 a.m. and I'm already on the way home. Like, because we had to vacate, but I was just hopping with energy. Holy heck. And I'm still so energetic right now. It's still the same day. Yeah. Anyways, that's... And the story and the digression I'm going on right now while I'm bootstrapping this Neverwinter, it's a consequence of that. I have so many thoughts going in my mind, but it's so refreshing. I hope other people get that. Like, if you feel like you're grinding, right? You're just grinding along, you're feeling like things are still, you're not getting inspired and stuff. It's like, man, throwing yourself working on a way to just stock up energy and then pulling a trigger on just something unexpected, uncontrolled, it can be intoxicating. There's no way I can do it every day though. Like, I'm good. I'm good for like another year. Now all I can think about is the things that I've been talking about. Constantly create a lifestyle that is consistently providing net positive energy and keep on getting one extra point and one extra point. And then when time comes and you need to get tackle something really big, you got it. Like, and you can farm the heck out of it. Like, for me, the farming comes after. So today is consolidating all the things that I farmed. It's kind of like going out in an MMORPG game and you're like collecting materials, right? But the collecting the materials part is expending your energy. What you make out of the materials come after. That is your reward. But you must have enough energy to perform the action before you can see what the reward is. And that's what I had. It's like I had 300 stamina points, and mining all the possible materials in excess required like 150 stamina, right? In 3 days. And I still had like 150 left over, but I mined everything I could possibly do in that time. So non-stop mining, and it only consumed 150 stamina. So I had an overflow of stamina. And now I'm reaping the rewards. So I'm like consolidating what I can say and what worked and what didn't work. What I could change up. Maybe made a new, like, maybe I might have, I'm gonna try really hard to like turn 2 or 3 people's lives around. Like, it's all good now. I mean, it's kind of weird to say this, but whenever I meet, I'm really so attracted to people with problems. Like, I love solving problems, and when I have a lot of energy, I just can't. It's electric. I just want to solve your problems. That's kind of the thing. It's pretty intoxicating. Our problems can be so intoxicating. And and then I was talking about how challenges, right? When people talk about video game challenges and whatnot, hard problems mean I can fail these challenges. Like, that's what I mean. It's really exciting because I don't know if I'm going to fail or succeed. But gosh darn it, it's an outlet for my excess energy. I was talking about this in the scope of gaming because gaming doesn't... A lot of times when people play video games, they don't play for a challenge. Often the challenge has a conditional. It means you can complete it. You can succeed in it. And that is the least challenging thing, that, in my opinion. But like one of the lowest categories of challenges. Knowing that you can tackle a challenge that you can complete. The greatest challenges in life are the ones that you don't know. And even greater than that, you fail inevitably. What's a great challenge? Staying alive. For example. So, the problems that the people I'm hearing and thinking about and talking about is inevitably they're going to fail that fight. I'm going to fail that fight at some point, like to stay happy constantly. But boy, is it a great problem that can continuously provide challenges. And that is, that's like an addiction, in my opinion. Like, I know that sounds cliche, but I like hard challenges. But I also know when I'm not in the state of mind or health to be able to do it. Just so happens that this past 4 days, I was ready. Because I knew going in that when I volunteer and I tell people I want to help people, I really mean it. I have so much to spare that I'm not going in expecting something to get out. Like, I didn't, like, technically I'm floored that I got something out of it. Like, those great little like beats where someone gave me something just because, I don't know, I smiled at them in a specific way. Like, I got a lot of other stuff. Like, when you are willing to give unconditionally, that thing that I talk about, like getting lucky, you know, like if you're someone who's really positive and have a lot of, and what I mean by positive, I don't mean optimism. I mean excess energy, net positive energy. When you share that, you are gambling. But sometimes when you gamble long enough, you get lucky. And it's not a lifestyle for everyone because they have resources. You have time. And I talk to someone like this. And my talk to them is, you should be proud of how you can manage your limited energy and resources to gain more energy and resources. And then one day, I hope that such a kind-hearted person, which I mostly believe everyone is kind-hearted, it's their resources and their circumstances that mar how kind they can act. Because acting requires the input. The thought of kindness has a lower input, right? So when I wish that one day most people will have my perspective, where they're not focused and desperately looking for opportunities for the self because they have enough to give to others, right? And that's what came of like another discussion we had. It's like, you should be proud, like you're working hard. You would expect a return having to work hard in that situation and stuff. You still need resources, you still need time, you're still looking for happiness. But the thing that I wish for as a prerequisite, it means you're already happy. And this past weekend was a test if I was truly happy. I just really truly happy. I wasn't very I'm gonna be honest, even till today, even till this day, I'm not like convinced that I'm unconditionally happy. But what I was able to do this past 4 days was convincingly true that I'm happier than a vast majority of people there who were volunteering. And that's not like, that's more of a bittersweet thing, a really bittersweet thing. I would love all those people who volunteered to be as happy as I am, to be willing to just share whatever they have. Like, I'm happy, I can be a little sad and tired and stuff so that I can boost someone else up, right? And for the most part, that's what Otacon's about. Otakon, all the volunteers, it's an entirely volunteer-based workforce. So in some way, everyone there thinks that they're net positive enough to offer, and it does show in the numbers. As long as it's net positive, right? The convention continues to grow. The volunteer pool begins to grow too. If there are some people who are looking to have help, like maybe stress relief and stuff, the volunteers interact with other volunteers, right? They collaboratively become bigger than the sum of their parts. And it was palpable. It was really palpable. Like the convention broke another record. And I didn't think it was going to be, I didn't think it was real because it was really hard. After COVID, the convention came back in 2021 and it got a slump. So it was like a 25,000, I think, ish, like sold memberships, right? Unique sold memberships. Then the following year, it increased by like 36 to 40% to 40,000. And that shattered all the records that it's ever had. And presumably, I can't wait till the numbers come out, but I think that was topped this year. So the con's still growing beyond its biggest state, and the number of staff is still fairly consistent, and if not growing. That's awesome. It's really awesome. But in all of that, there's still an opportunity. Like now, it's like also a place where I think there's enough positive energy where people can volunteer and be happy too. Like they can bank off each other, and it does work as a networking thing. Heck, while I pragmatically criticize people who like volunteer knowing that they're in a tough place, right? Like if you're in a tough place, sometimes helping others can get you out of a tough place. But in this case, this is even softer than that. If you volunteer in an organization like Otakon, you have many people that could have positive energy that you can learn to look for. So one of the conversations I had is that yes, a lot of people are stressed there, but there are also, it's the highest place you would find people not stressed. It's kind of like going to a volunteer group a lot of times, or going to an outreach program. The highest concentration of people who have more resources than they need, more time, more self-esteem, more emotion, is a volunteer group. Like, yes, there are going to be volunteers that are jaded and maybe looking for a higher purpose and maybe have the dissonance that I'm talking about. That's present. All of these things were present in Otakon. But overall, there's no higher concentration. Like if you're trying to find a pre-selection group where, hey, where can you find people who just want to help me if they see me that I'm down? It's definitely in a group that the whole purpose of that group is to make other people feel better. Like overall, like the general statement, right? So that happened. And I'm happy to report that I had a really good amount of unexpected. I was not expecting this, but I had a pretty good amount of affirmation on the things I've been talking about. So it really provides a little bit of confidence in a lot of my digressions. Like rarely, I wasn't expecting much. Like for me, my expectation is I'm gonna come home exhausted, put some smiles on people's faces, and that's it. And take it in, you know, like know that my expectation is when you're a giver, like someone who has a lot to give, generally speaking, when you give something, you always tend to feel like you lost something at the end. Like you're sacrificing something at the end. It's not until later that you'll ever understand the weight of what you did, right? Like, and a lot of times it's luck based, it's happenstance. Maybe you help the right person that can pay back, you know, like may you really feel like it's worth helping people kind of thing. That's fair. But for me, I have an emotional, my emotional state is lined up with my intellectual state. I expect to feel exhausted, spent, not thanked, not necessarily respected. I'm not expecting anything because I volunteered to give. That's it. But it turned out because I only volunteered to give, which is like the story of my life, I think people gave me back more than they can ever know. Like that, like for example, that one negative person that challenged me to try to turn their day around because they ended up smiling at the end of the day. That was more than I could ever expect. It was so gratifying that I can put some of the things that I did into practice, or some of the things that I suspected into practice, and it worked like a charm. But at the same time, my intellectual side, my emotional side is like, ooh, it's like plus 10 right now. My intellectual side is saying, dude, I know it's well and good, but you didn't really learn anything either. So that's the trade-off, right? It's often bittersweet for me. So since I didn't get challenged and I didn't find something that was out of my comfort zone, I didn't learn anything either. But boy, does affirmation feel good. I definitely understand. I get it. And I absolutely welcome it. There's no way I'll underplay it. So it's kind of like one of my favorite content creators, right? Businessman, educator, entrepreneur, etc. Whenever he gives like thanks speeches or like thank vlogs for like incredible things, like opening a multi-million-dollar service that to a impoverished country kind of level, he always talks about like, you know, how it started. It's not about the money, right? It's not about the clout, it's not about the challenge, but heck, if people are going to give you affirmation, like congratulate you and stuff, it's like, yeah, just no, I won't deny it feels good to do it, but it's way different from doing it expecting a return. And I can totally get used to that. So who knows, maybe one day I'm even more confident that I can write a book on this. But it's great. Like I'm so incredibly satisfied that my framework the framework that I've been working on to appeal to a different type of audience. So the goal of all of this practice is not that I can appeal to people my age or people my generation. The idea is try to convert the experiences that my generation has, and I'm specifically more talking about the United States around my time, because I'm not a globetrotter, and a lifetime is not sufficient to live in multiple countries and really be understanding, right? So mainly the United States. I can able to bridge people in their teens, their 20s, and bridge it all the way up to the ones that I'm most comfortable with, like people way older than me, like 60, 70. And the great reason and I was able to express that and communicate what I'm doing towards the younger audience to older people very efficiently. So the idea is it's working. And the one thing I really wanted to work on was, how can I impart life skills to a generation of people who no longer acquire life skills in the same way anymore? Like, that's kind of the problem. Like what I mean by the problem is the problem that they feel. So like a 20-year-old online, learn most of their content from YouTube, their life experiences from YouTube or something. Those people, their problem that they interpret, which is not the same problem that I face and people older and whatnot, is, did I capture that successfully? Having not being one of them. Like, I can't undo my life experiences prior to before the internet phase. So the idea is it real? Is it successful? Is it possible to get a kid willing to talk to their parents again, who their parents is having trouble communicating with their kid? So that was the idea. And because of the experience, I was able to see if the things I say to someone who's young is understandable to someone who's older and don't have any of that. Why this is incredibly important is that you can bridge that. And one of the biggest components that I always love to develop is communication. So it would mean that ideally, which obviously I haven't done it yet, but it gives me assurance that it can happen. I can go to someone's family, have their child and their parents sit in the same exact room, and be able to reach a reconciliation between the two of them with an approach that can likely resonate with both at the same time. What that means is the stuff that I'm telling younger people now and the stuff that I'm conversing with my colleagues and older people, those are transferable skills that can help them converse with each other. And that's delightful. That's like school counselor 101. And I've been doing this casually, right? I'm not a professional. I'm not going to go back to school to get a second PhD. I'm not getting a license to practice. So I'm not doing this professionally. It's just hobby. It's a passion. And if there's anything I can offer, I can at least identify the things and defer them to an expert, right? And I literally met a lifelong expert. That's what the glorious thing is. Like, I can't believe I was able to just coincidentally, I share these things, communicated these things, and I bumped into an actual person who's been doing it her entire life. And that's crazy. she's worked in this thing that I've been talking about longer than I have been alive. Actually, almost twice as long as I've been alive. That's insane. And I can even like contact her. It's pretty sweet. Like I can't. This was a really wonderful vindication. Anyways, that's basically where I was, Worm. If you're still listening, that's basically what I was doing the last 4 days. It's my one event. It's my guarantee one event. This is my 15th Otakon in a row, outside of COVID. 2020 COVID, it got canceled because of COVID. But yeah, been going for 15 years, and I would love to have the resources to continue going to other places and whatnot, but you know, I know my limits and my what I'm willing to invest. So that's my one of. If I have to do something once a year and I pledge to do it, right? I have to do all in my power to make that one day. I gotta own it. So if I'm committed to just this one event annually, you bet your butt I'm doing as much as I can to make myself the best I can for that one day. Or technically the one event. It's 3.5 days, but I'm still sobering up. I'm still in the process of sobering up and thinking rationally again, like thinking logically about all the things that happen. Trying to come up with like a consistent message and all that. It'll be so many wonderful stories. But anyways, I don't know if you are ready for that, but that's the answer. That's the long-winded response to why I haven't streamed the last 4 days.